In this video I'm going to show you the secrets and how to create amazing Burna Boy type beats. What's up everyone, welcome to another video, and in this video I'm going to show you how to create a Burna Boy type beat in FL Studio. So lately the style of Burna Boy is evolving. When listening to the new album I told him you can hear the trap influences, dancehall, I mean he's mixing up different genres. So in this video I'm going to show you how to create a more trap inspired beat. So I'm going to use some trap elements but still combine them with the typical Afrobeats elements. I'm also going to experiment with some dancehall rhythm. So we're just going to put them all together. First, let's get started with the melodies. In most of the cases, some simple keys I use. So in this case, I'm using the Stage 73, and I've removed all the high frequencies, as you can hear. So the first step is to pick the tempo and the key which you're gonna create this beat in. So in this case, I've picked 102 BPM, and we're gonna create this beat in A sharp minor. So starting off with this simple chord progression, we're starting off at A, then we're adding this C, now we're adding this F. So this A is a root note, so we're going to add a note right here, 1 octave down. Then let's copy this over, paste it right here. And I'm going to pick the next note within the scale. And then let's mess around. So we're going to adjust the root note to, let's say, D. And this will be our main rhythm. So at 1.5 step, we're going to switch up the chord progression. Then we're simply going to copy over this one. And let's say we adjust this to G. And then we're going to follow the exact same rhythm. So right here, another chord is coming in. Then just copy over the first one again. Make sure it fits the scale. So adjust this one. And adjust this to F. That sounds beautiful. So this is the way how to start off creating a beat. So mess around until the chord progression sounds perfect. Then I want to pitch it up. And we're creating a 4-bar chord progression. That already sounds beautiful. Step 2 is to add a bass line. I'm going to add a realistic bass guitar. So I'm using Contact 7 and I'm using the Scarby MM bass preamped heavy. And we're just going to follow the root notes. So I'm going to drag in a rhythm like this. And make sure the rhythm repeats itself like this. So copy it over, paste it right here. And maybe we could extend these notes like this. So this way it's very easy to create another layer, another dimension to the chord progression. And if you want to make it sound more realistic, play around with the velocity control buttons. You could do this manually or by pressing Option R and randomize these velocities. But in this case, I like to do this manually to make sure it sounds perfect. So right now we've added an amazing bass guitar, and let's move on to the next layer, which is a simple nylon guitar. So in this case, I'm also using Contact 7 and I'm using the picked nylon melody version. Just using this concert hall preset, and I want this to be on open. So I've created this guitar melody, which is not that easy to create, took me a long time. So there is a lot going on. I randomized the velocities. Not all the notes are playing on beat, so this gives it a really humanic feeling, and that's exactly what you want to achieve when you're creating guitar, melodies, especially when it comes to Afrobeats, because these beats are very dynamic and organic. So let's have a listen to this melody. Oh. Just a very happy, amazing, grabs the attention. I think this is a perfect melody. So let's play it together with the bass line and the chord progression. And as you can hear, it sounds like a full melody which is almost finished. And as you can see, it's following the exact same notes as our chord progression. So the guitar melody is based on the chord progression which we've created. Although it sounds like a totally different melody. On the guitar, I've added a simple EQ to make sure to clean it up at the mids and the low end. And then you want to add a little bit of compression. So I've just added some depression by default. I'm making sure I'm just reducing the peaks. And then I'm adding some more reverb to just add some more room. And by just adding 3 elements, the beat is still too simple. So we have to add another top layer. So at least 4 layers when it comes to this beat. So I'm just using the picked nylon again. And let's start off by drawing in a melody like this, which has this rhythm. which should sound very familiar when it comes to Wizkid beats. So the first part sounds like this. And I'm going to make it repeat again. So those two will repeat. And then we have to switch it up right here. And let's draw in within the scale like this. So let's have a listen. So as you can hear, it goes very well together with the already existing guitar melody. So those are two complements, but within the arrangement, we're going to switch it up to make it interesting. So that's when it comes to adding all the melodies. And right now, let's dive straight into adding the drums. So as I already told you, I want to add a similar rhythm to dancehall. So in this case, let's use this rim from the Blackout drum kit. And let's drag it in right here at 3/4 of the first step and then at the third step. So this is the main rhythm for our drums. Then we're going to draw in the kick to define the drum loop. So we're going to start off right here. So that's it. We're going to keep it very simple in this case. So copy it over. So we create a 4-bar drum loop. So right now we're going to add a hi-hat to add high frequencies to the drum loop, and it's following this rhythm. So I've added a lot of swing to this hi-hat loop and also made sure not all the samples are playing at the same note. So by just dragging it down from C to A, you're adding a totally different vibe to this hi-hat loop. Then we want to add some high frequencies by adding this typical trap element, which is a simple open hat, which is following this pattern. It's playing in E. So in this case, it's really adding some high frequencies. Then we're adding some organic percussion using this wood sound. Make sure you add a lot of dynamics by playing around with the velocity. You could also randomize this one. And then we're adding another conga, triangle, and tambourine. Just to add some more rhythm, add some more percussions, you want to make sure you add enough elements when it comes to those beats. Then I'm adding some drums from the Amapiano Gravity Loop Kit, which contains some awesome ready-to-use drum loops. And those are just some more percussions which are in the background, just to make sure it sounds like a finished drum loop. So by just adding the main elements and adding those elements to the background, as you can see, it's very simple and it sounds like finished loop without making it just too complicated. So make sure to check out these samples. Then we want to add some rolls and impacts. So without rolls and impacts, it just isn't an Afrobeat. So let's add those. So I'm using the rolls from the Afrobeats Infinity Drum Kit. And I've also used the drums from the Afrobeat Infinity Drum Kit. So if you're interested, make sure to check it out. So I'm using drum roll 5. And then we want to add another impact, which is this one right here, impact 4. But in this beat, I don't want to make the drum roll repeat every time. So I've added a second drum roll and I've added an uplifter. So this is the second drum roll with the uplifter. Just a small detail, but just to make sure it's interesting, it's not repetitive. So that's why it's very easy to use drum rolls like this. So right now we're going to start off with the fun part, and in this case, very simple, the 808s. So we're going to create a more trap-inspired Afrobeat, and without an 808, it's just not that easy to reach this. So we're basically going to reuse the notes from our bass guitar, and in this case, I'm using this overused 808. So right now let's quantize this one. Let's pitch it up 1 octave and make sure within the controls on volume you add an envelope, which is a square to take fully control of the 808. I'll use this button cut itself, but I prefer to create an envelope. But right now it still sounds too simple, so we're going to add a slide note. So add slide right here. And then let's say we add one at F within the scale. Now we just duplicate this one right here. The 808 is just too short and I don't want any emptiness within the 808. So make sure to extend it like this and then just copy it over. And then at the end of the 4-bar, we want to make it a little bit more interesting. So I'm adding this G. So this one sounds like this. So right now we've added our 808 and I think the beat is nearly finished. So this is the final arrangement. I'm not going to show you the full beat, but I'm going to show you some amazing details. So right here I've created this bridge part. There is like this tape stop effect, but I've created this one manually. And this is also used in a lot of those tracks from Burna Boy and it's very easy to create. So let's remove this one. How to do this? You select the slice tool and then you want to make sure you select the elements which you want to repeat. So just copy one bar like this, then select this one and then drag it to the left. Ctrl C, Ctrl B, and now make sure you restore this one. And that's basically it. So right now it sounds like this. And then you could, for example, play around with the length of the keys to add some stuttering effect, just what you prefer. And you could also add some simple automations to play around with the volume or play around with some of the frequencies. To, for example, remove some low frequencies before the main 808 is coming in. You could create something very creative when you're creating something like this. And that's it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to check out the Afrobeats Infinity drum kit if you like the sounds which I've used. Also make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you have any questions about this project, make sure to ask it in the comments. I'll respond to every comment. And with all this being said, let's have a listen to the final beat.